Okay, I got us right at 11:30 Eastern Time, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, and welcome to the first Power Up session of the year, leveraging the RMO for improving employee engagement. Folks who are on the line and attended our Power Ups last year, welcome back. And for those joining us for the first time, the RMI Power Up is our educational webinar series where we cover a specific resource management related topic. And today's topic, it will be, as I mentioned, on employee engagement. So we got you 30 minutes today, so I want to get going quickly here. But a few items I want to cover before we get started is we have made a PDF copy of the deck available. It's in your handouts window there of your GoToWebinar control panel. You can download that if you wish. We are recording the session, and you should receive an email later today with a link to that recording. So please feel free to share that with a colleague who didn't get to register or isn't able to join us today. They can watch it at their convenience. And we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We know folks on the line have a lot of thoughts about this topic, and we hope as we go through the presentation, you guys have some questions. So feel free to enter that in the questions window there on the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll handle that at the end. Okay, that's it for me. I'd like to start off by welcoming Randy Miskovic. He's the Managing Director of the Resource Management Institute. Randy, welcome. I'll hand it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that. And welcome, everyone, to the first Power Up of the year. Employee engagement, super hot topic in the industry. So I hope that what you get out of the next half hour be valuable to all of our membership who are participating with us today. I want to do a special shout out to our three sponsors for today's Power Up: MavenLink, Keyed-In Solutions, and Kimball Applications. Thank all three of those firms for their support, not only of this Power Up, but all three have been very supportive of RMI efforts overall to advance resource management solutions. So we appreciate that very, very much. Those of you not familiar with RMI, I'll do a quick commercial for you, but certainly visit our website at resourcemanagementinstitute.com. We are, in a nutshell, dedicated to the advancement of resource and workforce management thought leadership, best practices and standards, and globally recognized credentials in the form of our RMCP certification program. We serve, mostly project-based services businesses, particularly professional consulting services, enterprise IT, and then most recently product development. We do have a number of members from the field services domain as well, and all growing quite nicely. In a nutshell, we help those companies with getting better at project performance, better resource utilization, customer satisfaction, and now certainly we're really focused on this industry issue around employee engagement and retention, and hopefully again you'll get some helpful content today. The Institute focuses on best practices in this area. We do a ton of extensive market research. In the area of workforce resource management, we've got training, education, and we run events like this, and we'll talk about this in a moment. Again, the website, this is just the cover page and the landing page of the website. Joining the RMI is free, and it gives you opportunities to collaborate through events like this or with our RM community tools, opportunities to innovate. People go through the RMCP program, the special toolkit that is available through the website, and education in forms of multiple types of courses we have in addition to our certification class. So anyway, that's a quick commercial on the RMI, and again, we really appreciate you joining us today. This topic about leveraging the RMO for improving employee engagement. I recently wrote a white paper, and it's a three-part series that we've begun on this whole area of employee engagement. If you haven't read it, I'd encourage you to go to the website and download it, and hopefully you'll get some value out of that. I'm going to be introducing a guest speaker, Kimberly Carrieri from Dell EMC, to talk about their approach and using the RMO for better employee engagement. I also wanted to share some RMI perspectives on the topic that will hopefully add another dimension to this conversation as well. In October last year, at our very first annual global symposium, I had in my closing keynote speech, I talked about 5 megatrends in the industry, particularly against project-based services businesses. And one of the 5 megatrends I talked about was this whole area of how employee engagement and the RMO come together to help the rest of the organization, including HR, delivery, finance, other organizations that are all focused on this issue of employee retention. Workforce stability is always going to be a need for our businesses. The changing complexion of the marketplace as far as the workforce is really compelling. More than a third of the workforce today are millennials. In 5 years, half the workforce are going to be millennials, and now we're also seeing the wind up of the Gen Zers that come after the millennials or the Gen Yers, as they are both known. And while traditionally our HR will continue to be relevant and important to helping us solve this problem, the resource management office and better processes on the side are going to have to play a much bigger role, and that's the part that we're hoping to try to wind up to help the industry with. And one of the key findings that I talk about in my white paper is this whole area about how do you engage people more in line with their aspirations and motivations. And so we'll talk about specifics as it relates to that, and we believe that part of that solution is through the RMO. Wikipedia has got a definition out there. I just kind of draw your attention to the center of that first paragraph, where it talks about an engaged employee is defined as one who's fully absorbed by and enthusiastic about their work and takes positive action. Those are the types of feelings and relationships with the companies these people work with that leads to improved retention. And that's really what we're trying to get at. Is for those of you familiar with SHRM on the HR side of things, is their data, 47% of HR professionals cited employee retention and turnover as their top workforce management challenge of the year. And again, I mentioned the changing workforce dynamics. Some of the data we've quoted came from the Pew Research Center, and again, more than 1/3 of American labor force participants are millennials today, and their wants and needs are not the same as the silent generation or the boomers or the Gen Xers that came before them, and that's just a reality that businesses need to deal with. So our perspectives from the RMI side are really essentially, if you look at the key drivers of turnover in businesses, we gather these not only from our own research, but from a wide variety of other research studies. And that while this is not an exhaustive list, these 6 are certainly show up in most research around why we're having the retention issues we're having, particularly with millennials. And but 6 things were, and I'll just focus on the top 2, which are career development and work-life balance, because those are 2 things that the RMO and better ARM processes can definitely help with. Not that the other 4 things listed there aren't important, they're all important. And so specifically as it relates to those 2 items is capturing employee career wants and needs and relevant personal wants and needs are really, really important, and capturing those in your skills database so that as you connect that skills database with some kind of an allocation mechanism for your projects, that those things are taken into in consideration more in balance with where the industry has traditionally been, which has been a heavy focus on efficiency. I got a project, I go find out who I have available and put them on the project, and while I had some work we've been doing on wanting to do a better job of assigning people the kind of projects, the kind of work that they want to do better in line with their careers, that's not scalable. And scalable means using technology and process to help us take that and make that connection, and then having some kind of a cadence for regular updates to that skills database. We just released a survey report back in the February timeframe on skills databases and how that works and what's working, what's not working in this area of employee engagement. Certainly came out of that. I ask you to go take a look at that if you haven't done that already. And then secondly, as I mentioned, redefining project allocation priorities and algorithms. The RMO is where we believe this ought to be conducted as a first pass for allocation of people to projects, and redefining our priorities there to find employee engagement objectives in balance with other efficiency criteria or other needs of the business has just got to be find a new place or a new balance in the industry than where it currently is and from where it really needs to be. Again, a reminder, collaboration with HR and delivery teams is really important here, and those things need to continue on, and just the bigger role of the RMO is going to be really important here. So with that, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker today, Kimberly Carrieri. She's America's Theater Lead for Resource and Skills Management. I would also mention that Kimberly also serves on the RMI's advisory board as well, has been a tremendous contributor. They do obviously a very large workforce, and this has been part and parcel to them trying to do a better job of both efficiency and employee engagement in what they do. Kimberly's team spans North America, South America, and India. She's been with Dell EMC for roughly 12 years in positions including project management, residency management, and technical delivery management. She's got an MBA from Averett University. She's certified both as an RMCP through the RMI and in PMP as a PMP through the PMI. So we're delighted to have her. She's got a wealth of knowledge and manages a really large organization of people. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our guest speaker, Kimberly. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm just going to briefly open with a quote by Maya Angelou, and her quote was, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And I think that that's pretty critical to the whole concept of employee engagement. So with that said, for Dell EMC, and as far as our culture code, one of our big items is about inspiring, our team members and winning together. And part of that, we added this year to our strategy, what we call the ABC. And that's about our people and how that all works towards employee engagement on achievement, being your A, B, being balance, and C, your connection. So that it's interesting because we are such a large company. How do you apply those principles at all layers, every business unit, et cetera, to meet our company's purpose, vision, and strategy? So when I go and we look at the resource management organization, it becomes how do our resource managers, our partner resource managers, and strategic resource managers apply these principles across the board every day in what we do and helping to keep our employees engaged. So some of the things that are really interesting about what Randy had just discussed was this idea of what keeps folks actually, motivated. And what we try to do here is add a personal touch from a resource management perspective. And what does that mean? And I'm trying to minimize my window so I can see the slide better. Give me just a second. All right, that's better. All right, so the strategic resource managers here at Dell EMC add their personal touch by being trusted advisors to their professional services leads in each division. And our professional services leads are essentially accountable for all of the business within their divisions. They're also responsible for having one-to-one relationships with the technical managers within their divisions. So with both of those things said, what do we do? How do we leverage those one-to-one relationships in regards to our employees and specifically to our technical resources? They meet weekly with both our PSLs and our tech managers. When we go through and we look at each individual on these calls, we're not just looking at utilization and lead times, but we're also looking at what are their current skills, where are there gaps that we need to close to help fulfill our business needs, but more importantly, what are their career goals as well and their personal goals? So do they have specific desires in regards to like moving or working in certain areas? Are there some personal things going on that need to keep them home versus traveling, etc.? And all of these things sort of lend themselves to what, we're here from a staffing perspective, right? But that alone indicates kind of a button pusher philosophy, and that's absolutely not what resource management is about. So we sort of bridge that gap, right, between what HR knows and what the line managers know, and share that information across so that we can find the right shadow opportunities, training opportunities, and not only that, but their working opportunities. So some of the things we factor into that as well, we call the health of the resource. And that comes back to that balance in our ABC. So, we want to meet utilization goals and all of these things that drive our business, right? As far as SLAs, SLOs, all of the metrics that go into operations. But we also need to hold ourselves accountable to the health of the resource, keeping them, healthy as far as they're not being overworked, they're not being burnt out, they're not feeling like they're pigeonholed to one specific skill when they perhaps have certain other aspirations for themselves. So that's the way that the strategic RMs, work. And the goal really there is that the resource management team, especially at the strategic level, really understand as much, if not more, than the direct management in HR on how to keep the employee motivated, happy to come to work. We all know not every day is sunshine. But over the big grand scheme of things, do they feel like they're in a safe environment, a secure environment? They feel like they're adding value and that they're being heard and that their needs and wants are being validated and followed through. And resource management here at Dell EMC, it's critical. All of those pieces come together on these weekly calls, and there's sharing of that knowledge as well. So if a strategic RM in one division has the wealth of knowledge on a particular individual, they're really good about sharing with the other SRMs. Hey, Larry is super excited. He's got family coming in from another country, visiting in Florida for about 6 months. He'd really love to do a residency there so he could spend time with them. It really gets down to that level. So that's a little bit on how Dell EMC and our resource management adds the personal touch to employee engagement. It's not just about their skill and are they available. It goes so much far beyond that. And the strategic RMs also have individual relationships with the resources aligned to their divisions. And they pick up the phone and talk to each other. They email each other, Skype each other, whatever mode of communication that's available, and making sure that there's a pulse check there on their availability, skills gaps, shadow opportunities, mentorship, desires to be in certain places, etc. So this doesn't just happen between the management and our professional services leads. This happens between the resource management and the actual individual resource as well. So that is how we do it here.
Okay. Kimberly, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And we mentioned that there's a Q&A box that's open, and I would encourage you, if you have questions for myself or Kimberly, put those in the Q&A box as well. Kimberly, a question I actually have for you that I think might be interesting to the group is that, so as you were rolling out your ability to do this, did you redefine how the role of the RMO and HR, how they play together to accomplish what you're trying to achieve here?
A lot of the HR piece lays with the line managers, but last year around the same time is when we rolled out the newer model, and keeping sort of employee engagement at the forefront when we were outlining how the strategic management layer of our resource management team here would work with the frontline management, in addition to the individual resources, in addition to the tools we use that don't provide you that kind of personal touch and insight. So we absolutely did go back to the drawing board when we looked at the organization, everybody's responsibilities, what they were accountable for, and how to best align those relationships.
Okay, perfect. So Kimberly, a number of questions have come into the panel here. I'm going to have you answer those here in just a moment here. I do want to do just a quick summary for folks on a couple of things. One is, if you're not familiar with the RMCP program, There are quite a few RMCPs on the line today. It's a first of its kind development program for resource managers to learn best practices. You get access to a special toolkit and an opportunity to collaborate with your industry peers. We have over 330 companies now that have certified some or all the resource managers through this program, and it's growing quite rapidly for us. There's two different versions of it: an in-class version that's 3 days long with a little bit of prep work, and a 6-week online instructor-led version as well, where we do a 2-hour session each week with a little bit of homework in between. You take your certification exam at the end, and then there is a recertification process, not too dissimilar from what that you would do as a PMP with a PMI. It's $1,895 per person, and it includes materials and your testing fee. If you're a PMP, by the way, you get PDUs for this program. 16 and a quarter for the in-class version, 13 and a quarter for the online version. We've got courses coming up. There's one on April 9th through the 11th here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We only have a couple of seats for that one left. The class is nearly full, but there are a couple seats still left. And then we've got one coming up in May that's an online class, and we still have capacity available for that one as well. You can find again information through the website, more about the program. I also want to call your attention to the symposium. We're running our second annual symposium this year in October in Dallas, Texas, again at the Renaissance Hotel. We had nearly 100 people attend last year. We're expecting a bigger crowd this year at this, and you'll be able to learn, collaborate, and innovate with your industry peers at the symposium this year on a wide variety of topics. And we will have some tracks for professional consulting services, enterprise IT, and product development as well. So there'll be specialty areas for those organizations. Would encourage you to go out and take a look at that. And if you're interested, we are running an RMCP class concurrent with it at the hotel that week as well, and we have a bundled price for that as well. So anyway, that's a little bit about the symposium. And then before I get to the Q&A here, just quick, I want to thank our sponsors again, Maven Link, Keaton, and Kimball. Really appreciate their support of the RMI and of this broadcast. It's very much appreciated. So with that, I'm going to go to the Q&A. We've got a bunch of questions in here, and Kimberly, some of these are for you and some of them for me. One I see several times that you can choose to answer or not answer is, how many people is each RM responsible for in your organization?
Oh, goodness gracious. We look at, when we built the model, it wasn't based on the resources themselves, but the demand or the requests that come in. So we're built in a 1-to-10 ratio, meaning on any given day, a resource manager should see about 10 requests on average. Obviously, we have ebb and flow there, right? We also share our resources across the division. So while there are alignments to the division, we always we start within the region, and then we branch ourselves out when we look at resources. So it's a long-winded answer that we have hundreds of resources. I mean, hundreds upon hundreds across the Americas alone. But we look at it more from a volume perspective per resource manager that they're working versus resources.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you, Kimberly, for that. There's a question here for us at the RMI, and it says, is there an RMI recommended division of responsibilities between delivery and HR? Because this is an area that changes. So I get the question. We've got it a million times. The white paper I referred to earlier on employee engagement, you can download it for free from the website. There's actually a graphic in there that has our recommended division of responsibilities between the delivery teams and HR, so you can get that from the white paper. And it doesn't mean that that's exactly what you should do in your business. Every business is a little bit different, and there's always reasons to drive you one way or another. But I just say we do a ton of research on that, and generally that's what we're recommending as we're beginning to move forward here. The question that was asked about the ratio of RMs to resources they manage for Kimberly too. I'd also mentioned that there's several research studies we've done on a topic, and you can go look at industry-wide data as to what those ratios look like more commonly. And we do divide them up between PS, enterprise IT, and now most recently product development. And so there's data out there, again, for free from the RMI. So please go ahead and do that. Another question that I'll take real quick here is there any other information from the RMI on how to use the RMO for employee engagement activities? This has been helpful. And I just mentioned two things. Is there's a survey outstanding right now on RMOs, and we're going to publish a ton of data on how RMOs are being used, what their responsibilities are with their metrics and how they're measuring things. And that survey is still open. And if you take the survey, you get the survey, but the research paper back for free. We're going to close that survey here in the next week or two. So I'd encourage you to get in, take the survey, and if you put your email in, you'll get a copy of the report when it gets published, which will be sometime in the second half of April, be most likely for that. The other place is the certification program itself is employee engagement is a topic that's covered in there. We go through, how do you build a better skills database? How do you work through the better algorithms for assignment and allocation, those sorts of things, and that'll be helpful. So there's a question here, and I'll throw it at you, Kimberly, to see if that's one you want to answer. Is organizationally, where does the RMO report up to?
So we report not into HR. I know there are companies that's the way that it aligns, and to be fair, we've tossed a little bit of that around as well. But we have a global RM operations team, and then we have a global RM lead. The operations team reports into Frank, as do his theater leads, which is myself, my peer Elliot, and my peer Bruce. We ultimately roll up into the support and deploy organization under our senior VP. So we are aligned under the delivery organization in deploy, and not to HR.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I'll mention too, the research report on the RMO stuff, when it comes out, we'll have data on where these RMOs report, based on, much, on a ton of responses from companies. So you get a better view of where the industry is. One thing with our recent research shows is that the growth of the RMO is undeniable. It's about 60% of organizations now that are formalizing RM have adopted RMO as just a construct of choice to go do that, and there are some standards starting to emerge around where these people are being are reporting. A question here again for you, Kimberly. Do your RMs own staffing and approvals, or do line managers sign off on assignments, or do you have some hybrid approach to how that's done?
No, resource management owns the staffing.
Okay.
So now, do we have exception approval processes and things in play that may impact business metrics where we'll require different approvals? Absolutely, just to keep, just the health, right, of just the business as overall. But overall, if it looks and smells like staffing, that all falls under resource managers, and we are the sole accountable party and approver for scheduling.
Okay, perfect. I think we got time for one more quick one, and it's regarding the cadence of meetings to discuss the demand of work required by the business, and who's involved in those meetings. I'll start answering that, and I'm going to let Kimberly see if she has a thought there too. Is in the certification program, we talk a lot about this in the concept of interlock meetings, and particularly as it comes to supply and demand balancing. And we think these interlocks are really important. We have suggestions on what organizations might be involved. Those organizations are generally named differently in different companies, but we specifically discussed that how you build a better forecast and the cadence of those, and what best practice looks like for those as well. And so there are some established norms and best practices that the RMIs help define in our just-in-time resourcing solution. That's part of what we teach in our certification program, and I know part of what Dell EMC has adopted There's literally hundreds of companies have adopted just-in-time resourcing as an industry standard now for how resourcing is done. Kimberly, anything you want to add to the cadence of meetings to discuss demand of work required by the business?
Yes, we look at the demand every day, comes in through a reporting function. We have the weekly meetings as well, like I spoke to. We also have twice a week meetings to review any challenges that we're having, whether it's with utilization, capacity, as far as aligned to certain volume that we see, et cetera. So I would say minimal weekly up to several times a week, depending on what line of business we're discussing. And things change hour by hour, so it's necessary that we're having those discussions. Again, some is just done by output of reporting from the RM operations team, and some of that is done by regular cadence and calls. Yes, we absolutely have adopted just-in-time resourcing. We do the best of our ability to to meet those types of best practices. And just for the record, if you all were not able to join the symposium last year, would highly recommend attending. Just from a networking perspective, it also gives you a pulse check on where you may feel you're really mature and strong, and then identifying opportunities for your business to improve. And then, like I said, just establishing a really nice network of folks that you can reach out to. In addition to that, if you're not RMC P certified, and no, Randy didn't ask me to do any type of plugs, but I would highly recommend that as well. As you saw by my introduction slide, I was not born and bred resource management. So I can't stress enough how much taking that training and sitting for the certification helped me over the last year in doing a better job in the role that I have and helping the teams do better as well.
Perfect. We are out of time. Kimberly, I can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing your perspectives at Dell EMC. I'm sure that was helpful to the membership. Thomas, I'm going to turn it back to you to close the session.
Yeah, I'll just echo that as well. Thank you, Kimberly, for joining us today. That was really great stuff. Randy, I want to appreciate you sharing your perspectives on the RMI's perspectives on this. Thank you for your time. And for all of you on the line, appreciate you attending our first Power Up of the year. We've got 3 more of these throughout the year. We do one each quarter, so be on the lookout for emails for the next one. And with that, I will sign off. Thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great day.